Gandhi's struggle for justice in South Africa, 1910 to 1914. Gandhi had become good friends with Hermann Kallenbach, a German Jew who was interested in different faiths and who was looking for ways to live a simple, peaceful life. They had first met in 1906, and Gandhi had stayed with Kallenbach when he was working in Johannesburg. In 1910, Kallenbach gave Gandhi more than 400 hectares of land, about 35 kilometers from Johannesburg. It was good land with its own water and many fruit trees, and they decided to call it Tolstoy Farm. Kallenbach organized simple houses which were built by the families. About 75 people lived there, Hindus, Muslims, and Christians. There were no servants, and everyone helped with the cooking, cleaning, and washing. Kallenbach learned to make shoes. The families always traveled third class on the trains and often walked to Johannesburg. Sometimes Gandhi and Kallenbach walked the 35 kilometers to the office in Johannesburg and back again on the same day. In 1910, the different provinces in South Africa joined together to make the nation of South Africa, a nation with a white government, although about 70% of the people who lived there were black. At this time, the most important problem for Indian workers was a £3 yearly tax which they had to pay to the government. Gandhi worked to try to end this tax. Harilal became angry with his father because Gandhi sent a cousin to study in London, but refused to allow his son to go. In the end, Harilal went back to India with his family in 1911. In 1913, the government decided that Hindu marriages and Muslim marriages were unacceptable. Only Christian marriages were accepted by the courts. Indian men and women were extremely angry about this new law, and Gandhi started a new fight against the government. His plan was for large numbers of people to disobey the law. If there was not enough room for them all in the prisons, things would be very difficult for the government. Kastur and a group of women went into the Transvaal province without papers and were arrested and sent to prison. Indian factory workers stopped working. When Indian miners joined the strike, they had to leave their homes, which belonged to their employers. Gandhi asked the 5,000 miners to walk 290 kilometers with him, from Natal into Transvaal and on to Johannesburg, where they could live at Tolstoy Farm. Gandhi told the miners that they must remain calm and peaceful. If some of them were arrested, the others would continue to march. There must be no violence. Gandhi phoned Smuts before he started the march, but Smuts refused to speak to him. On the 6th of November 1913, the march began. Gandhi was arrested a few days later and sent to prison. The marchers continued, led by Polak and Kallenbach, who were later arrested too. The marchers walked about 170 kilometers before the government sent soldiers to put the marchers on trains back to Natal. The soldiers beat many of the marchers, and some of them died. But more and more Indians joined the strike, and every detail was reported in Indian and British newspapers. After 6 weeks, Smuts sent a message to Gandhi in prison. He was ready to talk. Gandhi and other leaders were released in December 1913, and when Gandhi spoke at a large meeting in Durban, he wore the simple white clothes of the poor Indian workers. Gandhi had been helped by gifts of money from India and from a new British friend, Charles Freer Andrews. Andrews was a Christian who had met Rabindranath Tagore, the great Indian writer, in London in 1912. In January 1914, Andrews went to South Africa to help Gandhi with Indian opinion. He gave Gandhi all his money and became one of Gandhi's closest friends. Gandhi negotiated with Smuts for 6 months, and finally, in June 1914, agreement was reached. The £3 tax was stopped, and Indian marriages were accepted. Indians, however, were unable to move from one province to another. The agreement was not a complete success, but it showed the world that non-violence could be effective. Some of the rich Indians in South Africa were disappointed because Gandhi had failed to help them, but the poor Indians loved him. They had called him Bhai, brother, for a number of years, but now they began to call him Mahatma, which means great soul, though Gandhi was never happy with this name. Kastur was now called Kasturba, Kastur Mother. Kasturba became very ill after she was released from prison. While Gandhi was caring for her, he received news that his brother Laxmidas had died in Porbandar. Laxmidas had been angry because Gandhi had not become a rich, successful lawyer. But before he died, Laxmidas wrote to Gandhi saying that he wanted to visit him in South Africa. Karsandas, the third brother, had died in Rajkot in 1913. Gokhale, who had visited Gandhi in South Africa in 1912, persuaded Gandhi to return to live in India. He believed that Gandhi could become an important leader there. Gokhale was ill in London and asked Gandhi to visit him there before going on to India. The families from the Tolstoy farm had already sailed for India when in July 1914 Gandhi left South Africa for the last time, sailing to London with Kasturba and Kallenbach. While they were on the ship, the First World War started, and as soon as he reached London, Gandhi began to organize an ambulance corps. However, he became seriously ill, and his doctor told him to return to India. His German friend Kallenbach was not allowed to travel with him, however, because the British government in India considered Germans to be enemies. Sadly, he said goodbye to Gandhi and went back to South Africa. Kasturba and Gandhi sailed for India in December 1914. Gandhi's experiences in South Africa had made him confident, and he had learned that he could organize and lead others. He took with him the lessons he had learned in South Africa, about the simple life, about the disease of racism, and about how nonviolence could change laws. His faith in God and his love for human beings had led him to a life of bravery and self-control,